For another PB&K, and this time around I finally got around to doing that thing I was telling you I was going to do. We're doing the MMO thing this time around. Now, for a lot of you, you may not know what MMOs are, which is possible because, you know, they're not for everybody. But an MMO is basically a massive multiplayer online game. Good examples of this would be like Final Fantasy 11, Final Fantasy 14, EverQuest, EverQuest 2, Aeon, Terra. I haven't touched that one. I don't know anything about that one. Global Agenda, which basically sucked, and well, in my opinion, and well, there's a bunch of them. You can go Google it. For the most part, WoW, yes, World of Warcraft. For the most part, they're not a whole big, you know, loud what to do about it or anything like that. It's just that I've been playing DC Universe as of late, which I know you know because well, I tell you all sorts of stuff that I probably should just keep to myself. But that's beside the point. Either way, though, I kind of saw something that needed to happen, and this is kind of a way to fulfill that. And it's just that when you're new to an MMO, there's no feeling quite like being new to your first MMO. You're all excited, you're ready to play. You start playing and you're just going around, you're beating up little creatures and it's fun, you're enjoying it, and then you have to at some point begin to play with others. And this is where problems begin usually. Because while you were doing stuff on your own and you thought you was actually out there accomplishing something, but like as soon as you get into a party, someone will remind you that you have no idea what on earth you're doing and you better get your stuff together, because if you don't get your stuff together, we're going to kick you from party and never talk to you again. Yeah, I'll be completely honest with you. I kind of one of those folks who don't care. But in Final Fantasy 11, just to kind of put things in perspective, I was a healer. Basically, it means in Final Fantasy 11 when I was playing, it means you can go out and you can heal and restore people, and you can get all sorts of parties and stuff. And I'm going to explain some of these terms to you too. And people will be your friend as long as you're kind of good at what you do. The only problem is that you cannot go any place by yourself without getting murdered. Repeatedly. Murdered. Repeatedly. And, you know, that was something I didn't like about it. But, you know, I'm making this way too much about me at this point. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to transition, because what I'm really doing to you is I'm talking right now and stalling for time. Because I have notes on my Google. Yes, my Google. And it's basically letting me know where I'm going to lead these chats. A handful of friends of mine, rather, will actually be assisting me in some of these. But it's kind of going to be based on when we can actually get them all together and stuff. So, you know, we have little problems like that, because right now, the dude who can really describe tanks and tanking, which I will go over hopefully in this episode, will actually kind of sit down and just do his thing with explaining what's important to him when he builds a tank and things to do. But for now, because you're brand new, I'll just want to kind of introduce you to some concepts that seem to be somewhat universal to MMOs. So think of this as your beginner's guide to MMO games, so they will stop calling you some noob. Which brings me to my first term. Noob. Also short for newbie. Okay, usually this refers to a player or someone who plays the game and they don't quite understand how the game works, so they're making a lot of nonsensical errors and dumb mistakes and such, and things that don't necessarily really come together well. You know, Like, they're trying to beat up the monster and they're a healer, which is a no-no because that only gets them killed. And stuff like Tank, who is supposed to be the guy drawing the monster's attention away from you, is pretty much trying to heal or do something else other than keeping the attention of the monster. I mean, these things are all basically job-based, and job titles change from game to game, which I'm going to go over. Excuse me while I put my eye back in. Sad part is, I'm not going to cut this, because I don't do that. Anyway, yeah, how many people were grossed out just now, right? Anyway, that's the first term. The next term is NPC. Alright, now NPC stands for non-playable character. Basically, that's a character that is not controlled by another person. So, thus far we've gone over noob and NPC. And I say noob because when you're playing, you're probably hearing it a lot already if you're not very good at what you're doing. You're not hearing it so much and people are giving you kudos because you're doing it right. It means you probably went online and Googled how to play your job for that game, which the internet is a wonderful source. Just about each one of these games has some type of a website that kind of tells you how to do basic things and cookie cutter type of setups, which is actually rather important when you first start out. You can start experimenting and become awesome later, but you know, you got to get the basics down, and that's kind of what the first few levels or the first 20 or the first 30 levels are for and such. And MMOs are starting to come in a variety of flavors now. But also too, next thing is we need to talk about quest givers. They're basically a type of non-playable character that gives you missions or gives you quests. So they're probably the reason you're really doing anything, and they're going to help you do things like level up. Leveling up basically means you're acquiring more skills by basically getting EXP mostly, which is experience, whether it be in experience points or just EXP in general. What it does is that it helps your character level up so that you'll have more skills and be more formidable at your job, whatever it may be. Job is pretty much like what you do. Jobs and classes are sometimes interchangeable depending on what you're playing, and like in Final Fantasy 14, they're currently two separate things, but I'm playing 14 as well, but I need a better video card before I get heavy into it. So that's where I'm planning to spend a lot of my life during this current summer. Pretty much the next thing is mobs. Mobs are basically short for monsters, or rather a slight designation of the name. You welcome to wiki any of these terms and such because they may give you a better idea. I'm kind of explaining them on how I know them to be. But for the most part, mobs are monsters that you either encounter or kill, basically for drops and loot. So loot and drops are basically awards that come off the mod. The mobs that are basically for either completing a mission or a task, or just for killing the monster in most cases. It's basically anything other than EXP or experience. So that's kind of how you look at it. Super mob. Now this is something we used to talk about in Final Fantasy 11 a lot. I'm sure it's in other games too. Ever so often, when you're doing good and you're killing a particular type of monster, all of a sudden you'll come across one. He doesn't look any stronger than any of the ones you just finished massacring. But for some reason, he either evades really well, or he takes an unusually high amount of damage, but he's not a special mob. But he just won't die. We refer to those dudes as super mobs. Now, there are also things like notorious monsters in certain games where they're a particular mob that's a high or unusually high class of an existing mob, usually in that area or of that race or type or whatever. Now that's different because those things usually become really good drops and that sort of thing, and they're just people know about them more or less. Even if you don't know and you meet one for the first time, it'll either kill you or drop something really cool, and you'll kind of know what happened.